Hello, everyone. We're back. And the next episode that we're talking about is episode 2, season 6. It's called A Town of Outlaws, The Shadow of the Fūma Clan. And if you're catching on Netflix, but overall it's episode 137. And if you're looking at it from the Japanese original, it's season 4, episode 5. So, what we discover in this episode again is more of the idea that these are children who are trained in the art of ninjutsu. So, as a part of the cartoon, it doesn't really bother the mind to understand that. But if you think of it in a real world scenario, you see that these are 13-year-old children that are potentially harming other people. I'm not an advocate for, child safety in any way, or against it or for it. But I'm just saying, you got to think about what's being done. They're training these children at a young age to do things that most children don't even understand at that age. And they have to put themselves in the mindset of, think of them as Navy SEALs at the age of 13. So you see this with them always being on alert. They're finding counter operatives in different lands that they go to. So think of yourself traveling to Australia and you're undercover trying to find operatives and you're only 12. And there's a team of 3 of you all. Just something to consider. So Jiraiya in this episode, he takes the money from the kids and he goes into the places, the dirty places, to find the dirt. Now, you may look at this as him just, engaging his lower senses, but you can only really find those sorts of things you can only find trouble if you're looking for it. So you have to go to the places where the trouble is being had, or where people hopefully, but where people consider those things to be troublesome for society. So he goes to the bars, he goes to the whorehouses, he goes to, gambling halls. All of those places are the places where you're going to find the information that you need. And that's what an operative would do if they're scouting out an area trying to figure things out. But on the other side of it, you're also being looked at. So if you think about CIA agents today, they go to bars, they go to places like that. And it's easy for them to give up their cover if, they're asking questions just obviously and overtly and not being more covert about it. Overtly as opposed to being covert about the information that they're trying to discover. Hopefully that is not blurry, guys, but we'll see. So he ends up finding a band of thieves, and they attack him. And he has to give up his cover by shielding himself with his method of shielding himself, the long extended hair. So then he has blown his cover. But he also gains the respect in them knowing that he's one, a ninja, and that 2, he's a famous one. So from that, you can actually get people to your side. You can convert people by knowing who you are, or who you work for at least. So again, can you get me out of Russia if I tell you these secrets? And you're like, oh yeah, sure, I work for any of these organizations that can do that sort of thing. We'll keep you safe. So sometimes blowing your cover can be a bad thing or a good thing depending on how you are. How this relates to metaphysics, you'll see soon. So you also see how his name itself is a form of magic. The three things that you need to perform any type of magic is trauma, repetition, and symbols. So he is a symbol. The headbands that they wear is a symbol. The Konoha, or the land hidden beneath the leaves. That symbol they wear on their headbands is a symbol. So whenever he shows up and he actually wears that headband, or even the one that he wears as a Sanin, it's a symbol that people identify right away. And because they can identify that symbol, they know if that's something you want to fuck with or something you don't want to fuck with. So it's just like if it's late night and you see the Taco Bell sign or you see the McDonald's sign, you're like, I know one of those I don't really want to mess with like that. The other one I do. Or I will at least try before I try the other one. So that's the symbol. The trauma is what happens after you eat it. But also the trauma for his case is the fact that they know about what he's done to other people. To them, that leaves a mark in their mind to know that he is somebody that they don't really want to mess with. So that's the trauma. That's way better. That's the trauma. And the symbol and the repetition is people spreading the word. So him doing the dance, him saying, being boisterous about who he is, that is the repetition, and it's repetitive. Over time, more people say his name, the more people do what he hear his stories, the tales of a gutsy ninja. That is the repetition. That's the spell being cast. So trauma, repetition, and symbols. Brother Panic talks about that a lot. He just passed. He passed last year actually, and he broke that down in his books. But he was he called himself an eschatologist, but high-level occultist, and that's really what he brought to the forefront. That alone is enough to free people's minds from a lot of the marketing and mind control that goes on in just the daily. So marketing is mind control, and that's what Jiraiya was doing. He was marketing himself with his symbol, with his dance, with his speech, everything. So he is marketing. Now we get a little bit more into the episode and you see the girl with the red hair. Anytime you see red hair in anything, even just a person, that's the giant blood lineage. That's the giant's lineage. Now, that goes into something else, not necessarily metaphysical, because it's actually physical. But anytime you see that, just understand that's from somebody with or the Burgess or the Burger King, or part of that lineage is where that comes into. So the red hair, you can always say that that's from that lineage. Why that's important? It can be important for a lot of reasons, but that's just something to keep an eye out for, just as an interest. Now we also see Orochimaru's campaign as well, because he's also marketing. He's also doing his magic. He's also doing his metaphysics. And part of that metaphysics is him telling different parts of the village, we'll take your strongest warriors. We don't want anybody else, anything other than your best. And you can tell he's in the background when they're making this speech. And he has his servitor, his second in command doing the talking. That's just another form of magic. The leader never really speaks. People speak for him, and they tell others what to do. Nobody ever approaches the guy in charge, and he is using that marketing campaign the same way as anybody would use magic. So now we get to those three bandits on the road. So these are the subtleties of occultism, the things that don't just jump out at you if you don't know what you're seeing. So the reason why those first three bandits were what they were is because they're pretty much starting the story off after all of the things that have happened. So whenever you're starting a story, if you look at anything in Marvel, whenever they start a new series in Marvel, it always starts with Spider-Man, because the spider is the keeper of the stories, the storyteller, Laranya, the Anansi. They're always the ones who reboot the series. And this just goes back into just the Great Mother, her weaving her web, which is the womb, which is the matrix. The spider's web is a matrix. So all of those things are just the spider telling the story. So that's why one of the first attacks that was done by the bandits was a guy who used spiders. Because remember, in the Leaf Village, we have somebody who uses insects. We have a whole clan of people who use insects. So they use spiders just for that reason. So you have the spider. Then you have the leader, which they don't really touch on too much, but he's a stag beetle, or you can relate that to the scarab beetle, which is it's big in Egyptian culture, ancient Kemetic culture, or the dung beetle. And that's the one that pushes the dung across the desert sand during the full moon. And that's knowledge moving in the dark. The moon represents the light being shined on the darkness, and that's what the dung beetle leader guy represents. And then also you'll look at the third guy. We'll talk about him in the next episode because he's also very important. But the third guy, he is an insect that's going through metamorphosis. So a caterpillar, some other beetles as well. There's actually a book called The Metamorphosis by Kafka. It talks about a guy who does something like that. We'll actually touch on that maybe a little bit later. But that's what that represents. These three guys are these three insects that represent the start, the middle, and the end, and then how it comes into a cycle. The metamorphosis is the end and the beginning. The stag beetle is the middle, and then the Laranya, the spider, is the beginning as well. So another thing that we can say really quickly for this episode is Naruto. Now, I might cover it in other episodes, but his shadow clone jutsu is a form of replication as well, since we're talking about how cycles go. His is an unlimited cycle. It's a never-ending cycle. It's a never-ending replication. The jutsu itself of replication of his body is cellular replication. So it's division of the cells. It's the gametes forming. It's everything that is in the human body, and then that mimics everything that is in the universe. The macrocosm and the microcosm are the same. So he represents that cellular division as well that never stops. His power never stops growing, no matter what. And we'll leave it at that for this episode, but we'll touch back on everything that's coming next in the next couple of episodes. See y'all then.